Dash from Circle Up, and it is our distinct pleasure to have Lauren Joyner on today, ahead of her our Super Bowl extravaganza where we're celebrating her launch. So Lauren, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on your launch.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to chat with you both. This is my first LinkedIn live session.
we're all learning, but we like doing it. And so it's been a kind of long time coming for you. I think, since I first got to try your product at Fancy Foods. I mean, was it a year ago? I think it was about a year ago, or maybe a little bit more. Together. Yeah. And there was just so much buzz about your product there. I thought it was the best thing that I tried. I was really excited about it. And then the world changed. I know you were planning on launching into food service and completely changed gears. So first of all, can you just tell people who may not know about your product, what is it that you've created?
I would love to. So at Loca, we make allergy-friendly, plant-based dairy alternatives. That's a mouthful. And our first product is plant-based potato queso. So it is essentially like that kind of processed jarred nacho cheesy sauce that you might remember growing up or you might have had at a bowl game. But it's top-8 allergen-free. There you go.
I got a couple
and it's made with real vegetables. So it's loaded with fresh produce like tomatoes, jalapenos, potatoes, carrots, onions. The list is very long, and it's shelf stable. So it's got a 12-month shelf life, and it comes in a glass jar, just like you showed off.
All right. And I know. Oh, and so let me just introduce Aditi Dash also, who's joining me from Circle Up. Aditi, do you mind telling everybody who you are and how you also experienced this for the first time?
Yeah, so I'm one of the investors at Circle Up, and Circle Up is an investment firm that partners with founders in the consumer product space. My story with Loca goes back to this event at WeWork. So WeWork was hosting an event at one of their offices, and it was for plant-based foods. And I went down to the first floor and had I think I got one little lick of the Loca, because by the time I got to the front of the line, it was all gone from the dispenser machine.
What did you lick it off of then?
I think I probably stuck my finger in, or there's totally left or something like that. And then I was lucky enough to meet up with Lauren at her then production facility, Kitchen Town.
Right.
And she gave me a few units of it. And I literally was eating it out of the jar, and just was completely addicted to how good and different and healthy the product was. And so I just I'm so happy to have this in my house right now. I'm waiting to open it, and I don't even want to share it. So
I can see that. So I could see you thinking about that just then. Where is it? I need a plan. I need to go get it right after this and eat it. And everybody says that. I just want to eat it out of the jar and go nuts on it.
I totally ate some today for lunch. I'm eating my own inventory.
Oh my gosh.
I love that you remembered that, Aditi, though, because Daniel, the Kitchen Town days feel like forever ago now, but they really weren't. I started the business in 2018. I started out in Kitchen Town just hand peeling potatoes myself and producing the product in the commercial kitchen. And you're sparking this memory. I remember us now. We met outside of Kitchen Town. I was so excited to meet with you. And we just had a great conversation. And yeah, it was fantastic. And then Daniel, you're right. Fancy Food a year ago now, which feels like a decade. Before COVID hit, it was sort of 2 months before the world turned upside down. And I had my cheese pump, a cheese dispenser too.
So good. So would it be weird if I just was drinking it like I'm drinking my water, just taking sips of it every few minutes?
No judgment.
So okay. And we've got people joining. Hey, Kirk. Okay, so Kirk, I was trying to remember
Good advice, Kirk.
What the maximum is. It's get high on your own supply, but Lauren's getting real high on the supply.
There's an episode of Arrested Development where they are running the banana stand, and they say one banana eat, one banana throw away, and they're take $1, throw a banana, take $1, throw a banana. And they're like, see, it all evens out. And just
okay. So, okay, Lauren. So, like, just first of all, you're launching at a really interesting time, right? And so, I know you very quickly kind of had to switch gears and, figure out how to launch in D2C. How are you going to do it? Like, because you just have launched basically this past month. What are your plans to really make a splash?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. So I think the two of you kind of have my backstory and you have the context, but just to share with the audience, this was right after Fancy Food, before COVID hit. It's kind of crazy to look back and say this now, but I originally had plans to launch entirely into food service. So before January Fancy Food, this was in 2019, I spent the first year of business operating in a contained test market in Northern California. And I was fortunate to get the product in kind of a variety of outlets like Oracle Park, University of San Francisco, NVIDIA, Airbnb, corporate tech campuses, a couple of restaurants, and some grocery stores. And it was great for learning because I was able to, get feedback from both chefs and customers and all different types of customers. And food service, I love it so much. It allows me to access kind of a mainstream audience fairly quickly. And I think with a plant-based product, this is my sort of hypothesis. If you're not already eating plant-based and you go into a grocery store, you're not very likely to go buy a plant-based cheese, right? It's hard to get consumers to change their habits. And when you go into a grocery store, most consumers have a fixed list and they buy the same thing every time. But my hypothesis was, well, if you go to a Giants game and you're sitting in the stands and you see somebody eating these delicious looking nachos, you might ask like, hey, what are you eating? Or you hear people kind of talking about there is a nacho cheese sauce that tastes just as good, but happens to be, cholesterol free, or whatever the kind of angle is for you that gets you excited. So the thinking is that you'd be more likely to try this type of food in this food service environment. And the test market went really well. And so I was working so hard to launch into more, food service places like movie theaters, sports arenas, concert venues. I mean, these were like my grand plans. And COVID hit, obviously had different plans. And, it was kind of wild at first. In March, when this first happened, I think like many people, I thought this was going to go away in probably a few months. I didn't realize that, the road ahead was going to be years or, year or years, plural. And so I took kind of a moment to breathe and kind of just look and see what was happening. By midsummer, I realized this thing isn't going anywhere. It's time to pivot. And that's when I decided to shift my focus, as you mentioned, into retail and specifically e-commerce. And so I'm actually super excited. We launched into e-commerce on January 1st, which I'm just thrilled about. And e-commerce is like this kind of amazing channel. It's been unexpectedly really, really good. I get direct feedback from customers like instantly all the time. People are giving me feedback on my ads and packaging and the taste. And I can start to build relationships with people, actually have conversations and connect, build the brand, kind of do all that fun stuff. And so it's actually been this kind of wonderful, like silver lining, I think, of this whole experience. And so thrilled to be in e-commerce.
Well, can you talk about one thing that you've learned already since you launched on January 1st?
So many learnings.
Tell us something interesting that you learned from your customers already.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the coolest thing has been, well, I'm gonna give two answers. I'm gonna cheat. First answer is, what's cool about Facebook is you can target specific audiences to kind of like pick who you want to see your ads. And so my hope is that flexitarians will want to buy and eat my product. Maybe they will swap out, dairy cheese one day a week, every day, just trying to eat more whole foods is the goal. And so the paid ads is basically set up 50% flexitarian audiences, but specifically people who love and follow brands like Velveeta and Kraft Cheese and Frito-Lay, the processed cheese stuff I grew up eating. And the other half is, vegans and plant-based eaters. And what's been so cool is that we have seen so much success with both audiences. It's actually pretty much an even split right now. And so I've had people that have commented and sent me a message and say, I'm not vegan, I don't eat plant-based foods, but I love your cheese sauce. And that is just so cool to see. Even just one person, it makes my day. You know, it's really, really wonderful to see that and get access to these consumers in that way. So that's been really unexpected. And I think the other kind of bit of data that was really cool, Daniel, I shared this with you last weekend, is I'm learning things that I need to do better at. So one thing that came up was a couple consumers had commented that the color kind of varied a little bit per jar. And to me, you know, I had kind of had it in my head that, well, it's a natural product. I think most consumers understand that there's a little color variation. But I quickly realized that, you know, if you're a consumer who's buying Velveeta or Ragu all the time, you know and expect that that product is going to be the exact same color, the exact same texture every single time, right? And so if you're used to buying that and then you pick up Loca and maybe the shade's a little different, that might signal to you that something is wrong. So that was a good signal for me to get ahead of that, go on the website and put a little note that says, you know, separation is natural, color may vary because of the fresh produce and the nature of, you know, the ingredients that we're using. So there's a lot of like kind of hidden learnings, I think, in e-commerce that I probably never would have, you know, gotten that data if I'd gone straight into brick and mortar or even food service.
Yeah, you will still always get those emails, I'm sure, even when it's on your website. So just look forward to a lifetime of that, but it's engagement too. So that's good.
Great. Absolutely.
But I really like that approach of like, you know, harmless harvest, separation is natural, or, you know, it's the pink color. It's because this is a real ingredient. Like this isn't super highly processed stuff that you can just churn out. The bright orange food coloring, right? So that's really cool. I'm really glad to hear that you're getting some of that direct feedback and learning from it already. So you know, I know you've gotten the product out to a lot of people already. Are you thinking about going for retail at some point soon, or kind of holding off to go back for a run at food service?
Absolutely. I think for me right now, my biggest priority is just making sure operations, everything from the back end is running really smoothly. I think that's super, super important, especially before going into some of these bigger accounts. I'm kind of hypersensitive to that. And I recognize that, you know, if you are you know, let's say you're a buyer for a national food service account or even a grocery store chain, you're sort of going out on a limb to bring in a new product, especially one like mine that is not available. And so, you know, I recognize that risk. And so I think it's my duty to make sure that when we go in there, that everything is just, you know, is buttoned up as it can be. And so I'm sort of hypersensitive to that, and I want to make sure that everything's smooth. And so the plan is to spend the next 6 months really refining and using e-commerce as an opportunity to do that. And then 2022 and beyond, absolutely hitting the ground running hard for both food service and possibly brick and mortar retail as well.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I was just remembering the comment you made about how good and gooey cheese looks at a ball game or something, or like a movie theater when you see someone else with it. I was just trying to think if there's any other product that so immediately and completely gives you the, oh, I want that. Like that looks amazing. That's a pretty good marketing insight. I was really continuing to appreciate that. And I see Stephanie Hawley from Whole Foods is on too. And I think it looks amazing. Like she agrees with your
That's so nice.
Food service approach also. Hey, Stephanie, good to see you. Cool. So I guess, you know, one thing people are thinking a lot about, I'm launching this year, how am I actually going to get in front of consumers? Because I can't do demos in stores these days. What's your plan to really drive awareness and trial?
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's definitely painful because, you know, Aditi, you met me at WeWork, and I think before COVID, I mean, I was doing an event at least once a week. And it was, you know, it's fun. It's a great way to connect with buyers and consumers. And now that we don't have that, it is tough. I think we're also kind of figuring out workarounds, to tell you the truth. But I have noticed, you know, there's kind of there's companies that are stepping up and they're trying to do more virtual trade shows. Range Me is a great example. They're doing some virtual stuff. Plant-Based World have some virtual stuff coming up. You just invited me to Clubhouse, which is a great example of a way to connect with people. So I think people are craving that connection, and honestly, we're still figuring it out. And I think for me, going into e-commerce now, it's kind of pushed me to prioritize building the brand more and connecting with customers more. And so, I've got a lot of fun plans in terms of social media and really, doing whatever I can, get on these live sessions, connect with people that way in the meantime. And hopefully things will resume some normalcy by the summer.
I hope so too. I was going to ask, have you done anything with user-generated content at all, or are you thinking about that? Because your product seems like it would be really good for that experiential angle.
Yeah, and can you I'm looking for ideas here, Aditi. So can you expand on that a little bit?
This is it. She's getting you to do user-generated content.
Yeah, exactly. You're already starting. But I think if you take a playbook from the beauty industry and you see how many influencers rely on normal people and influencers to showcase their usage of the product.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something to be said for that same aspect when it comes to food that's really experiential. And not all food is an experience, but when you're thinking about something like nachos, it just tends to be more of a social food. Yeah. And so I don't know why, but I think I'm more likely to watch somebody eating a plate of nachos or drizzle the cheese on the chips. I feel like I could watch the drizzle for hours, whereas it doesn't really work as well for other categories. So
I love that.
I think you could have a TikTok challenge, the Loca drizzle, and I feel like there's lots of ideas around that angle that I've seen TikTok brands blow up.
I love that. It's interesting you bring that up, because a couple people have brought up, Instagram Reels or TikTok, and kind of encouraging people to share more videos. And just in the last week, I've had 3 separate people make really cool reels of them heating up the product and making a dish. And that's so, so cool to see. And I actually had one customer make a dish that it never even occurred to me that the product could be used to make this, which I don't even know if I should be admitting that, but they made baked enchiladas. And it was, I made it at home immediately. I went out and got the ingredients and made it. And it bakes really well. And kid you not, for 2 years doing this business, I've never had anyone bake it. I've never baked it. Someone baked enchiladas and it's incredible. And so I think you're absolutely onto something. And that's a great thing to kind of push and encourage, moving forward.
That's amazing. Aditi, I guess I'm wondering, have you seen any other really interesting tactics right now from brands that you work with on, really good ways to just, get in front of consumer or trade press right now, or just really interesting ways to try to grow the business during this time?
Yeah, I think TikTok has been coming up a lot recently. And so I think that's worth digging into. Clubhouse is coming up more and more with brands talking about doing a Clubhouse together. And they used to talk about, hey, let's do an Instagram giveaway together. And now it's more let's do a Clubhouse together where we just talk about our brand. So I think partnerships like that are coming up more. Education as an angle is coming up more. So there are companies that are let's take an example, a non-alcoholic beverage brand would then launch a program to help you drink less and learn about the effects of drinking. So there's that whole education angle that can potentially even generate revenue, almost like a intro to plant-based lifestyle class or something that you did either for free or for a small fee. Brands are starting to do that, but those are that's what comes to mind top of my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. I think there's so many ways to get creative. I've thought about doing, you mentioned, plant-based starter kit, a recipe book, something like that, because I think, people are very interested, I think, everyone's always interested in eating healthier. The majority of Americans are interested in eating more plant-based foods. And I think COVID has just accelerated that kind of desire. But it's interesting though, because I think at the same time, there's been this acceleration of comfort food eating, too. It's like, we want our junk food and our comfort food, but we also want to try to eat a little bit healthier when we can. So it's almost like putting those two things together in making content that can really help people could be really powerful.
So switching gears a little bit, I think one thing that I am really impressed about, Lauren, is how you have delivered so much and made so much progress, mainly by yourself, right? Because I mean, at least as far as I knew, at least most of the time you were kind of a one-person team, right? And just but getting so much done and figuring out how to work with the right partners who you can leverage to really do all the things you need to do with, while you're still growing. What are the kind of activities you're trying to spend time on yourself versus figuring out how you find the best people who can help you? How are you thinking about the different kinds of pieces of work and what you should be spending time on?
Yeah. Oh, great question. I mean, always trying to get better at that. I think everybody is, time management is so important. COVID does kind of give you complete freedom, I guess, in your day, right? Because there's not that same obligation anymore of going to events. And for me, I'm not going to the kitchen anymore.
Freedom as long as you stay in your house. Freedom within your house.
Yeah, that's true. Freedom for me personally, to be at home a lot. But, I think I've gotten that question before. It's interesting. I think as the business grows, I'm trying to be more aware of what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy, what I do well and what I need help with, right? And that sort of shapes, I think, the priorities in terms of bringing on more employees and bringing on help. And so I've outsourced in where I can and brought on some amazing people on a part-time and contract basis. And that was largely driven by COVID. So when COVID hit, I knew that I wanted to hold on to cash as much as I could to kind of ride this wave and see what was going to happen. That was really important to me. And now that we've launched, my goal now is to kind of, I'm testing things in e-commerce. I'm seeing how strong, we can get our ROAS and our CAC and all that kind of fun stuff. And after a few months, kind of see where we're going to land financially. Are we going to hit our goals? What's our contribution profit at the end of the day? And how's that going to inform, me driving, hires and all that over the next year or two? And me, Daniel, I mean, I'm certainly a risk taker, but I very much like to test things and take calculated risk at the same time. And so it's just, it's just a learn as you go kind of process. And I think in terms of my time management, specifically and personally, I've never been a big desk person, even in my former career in tech. If anybody is listening or watching this, they will laugh because they know I would avoid my desk at all costs. And I always worked at kind of sort of strange hours, but I'm a big advocate of figuring out what works for you. Don't force something when it's not going to happen. So for me, I wake up early, I sort of have my time, my coffee, and then I am most productive in the morning. And then I'll take a break in the afternoon, exercise, do something like that. And then in the afternoon, I'll do something more creative. And that's a great example of something that I've chosen to keep in-house because it kind of helps my mental state. So I'm doing a lot of the photography, I do the packaging, all the creative stuff. And I actually really love it because it's sort of like this stress reliever for me. So that's something that I'm keeping in-house. But when it comes to, managing and running paid ads from the back end and all of that, that's outsourced. Not even going to try to do it.
I think that's
trying to recognize what I'm good at and what I shouldn't even touch.
Okay, that's I think that's a really a good answer that it really resonates with me of what are the things that are going to give you energy rather than take your energy away? Can you find great people who can do those things for you? Perfect. Mm-hmm. You can be more productive. So I love to hear that. Aditi, I have a question for you now, which is, so Lauren, on a great path, doing really well. At some point, she'll need to raise money and we'll come to somebody like Circle Up. So if we say, if it's a year from now and she's coming to you, what are the things you're going to start looking for to see if she's going to make the cut?
All right, I'm going to take notes.
Exactly. Well, I think Lauren knows all this, but I've been like waiting for her to hit that $1 million sales mark. And so that's a big hurdle. So first, you got to hit the $1 million run rate mark, which I would love to see in July. And then you got to hit the $1 million sales mark at the end of the year. But almost like equally important is early velocity at any retailer that you go into.
Yeah.
If you look at the best brands, they all have insanely better velocities relative to existing incumbent brands, even brands that have a lot of money behind it. So you're going to be going after some pretty big markets and probably piss off some pretty big companies. And that's a good thing as long as the consumers keep buying the product. So on-shelf presence matters, and making sure that the data is there. Like, my least favorite thing is when brands go and sell into a retailer, but they like didn't register, so it doesn't like show up as one of the high-performing brands. And then return on ad spend and LTV and CAC, they're like looking for at least 2x return on ad spend, ideally higher, and you want people to have 3 times LTV to CAC.
All right.
Love it.
That's good.
I'm dying to share my numbers, but I'm not going to do it on a LinkedIn Live. But I can say that I am also kind of like a data nut, as Daniel knows. I think we bonded over this. And I've quickly developed this like bad habit. Every morning I get up and I look straight at like the Facebook numbers and looking at my Shopify, and it's crazy. But it's important to look at that. And I think I have a question for you, if I might ask. So I've been, I think, targeting pretty aggressive numbers when it comes to ROAS and paid CAC and blended CAC. And as you know, let's say I talk to you a year from now and I'm like, we hit the $1 million mark. I think there's sort of 2 ways to get there, right? You can sort of, go off the rails with ad spend and have a really, really high CAC and you hit the number, and that's one thing. But for me, I'm really trying to have really healthy unit economics and have a really high, strong ROAS as well. And so that means for right now, month 1, I'm starting out with a more modest ad spend, and I'm testing and I'm making sure that we can kind of keep that strong CAC as we grow. So it's sort of at the expense of having like the big vanity numbers month 1, at the expense of making sure that the economics are really healthy, if that makes sense. So like, as an investor, do you look at that each month, and is that something that you would care about, or is it more about just, growth numbers?
Yeah. So I think that I absolutely care about it, because if you think about an investor's perspective, they need to make money. And so if you want to make money, you can't lose money on every order.
Yep.
But there are a lot of companies that are getting to high sales numbers and getting there with spending a lot. Yeah. So I think that if you are comparing yourself to all the other brands that are doing that strategy, I think you have to be okay with potentially your raise taking longer if it's not meeting those growth numbers, because growth is at the early stages often the most important thing for investors. So it can be tough, but if you build a sustainable business, you should be able to grow it and get to that raise point maybe a little bit later.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say growth is not important, because it often is the most important thing.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Very, very useful.
Thank you, Stephanie, by the way. I saw her little message. That was super nice.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, speaking of data, and maybe I'll end with this, which is I am going to see if you'll give us one piece of data, which is, so I didn't even know you were going to do this, but at the very last minute, you surprised us with the spicy flavor. Didn't know you had been working on it. It's amazing. Personally, I actually am team spicy. I love it. I love it so much. Like, I didn't even know it was coming out, and then I tried it, and I'm so hooked. Are you seeing any kind of interesting splits? And one reason that I ask is that I am not even somebody who typically loves super spicy food, and it just is so pleasant to me. How are you seeing the sales like versus the two? Is it what you would expect, or have you seen something different?
Yeah. Most people are buying the combo. So they'll do spicy and mild, even split. So right now we're offering a 2 and 4 pack, and it's, one of each or 2 of each. And I think people just want to try it and then decide which one they like. I've had a few people say like, I can't do spicy, and they'll just commit to the mild only. But so far it's been an even split. I think someone left feedback on the website today. They left a review and they said, I love the spicy, with like an emoji. So we've got another team spicy there.
Team spicy.
Yeah. But I love that you say that. And, it's not, you've tasted it. So, it's more like a bright, it's almost like a tangy, just true jalapeno flavor. There is an absurd amount of fresh jalapeno in the spicy. And so it does give it that kind of like strong, peppery profile. But I like it because that kind of leaves room for potentially another SKU that's truly like a hot, kind of spice. So that could be coming.
Oh my God, right. I can't wait.
Well, now that all of our mouths are watering and we're very hungry, I think this is a good time to end it. And so I'll just say a few last things. So Lauren, thank you again so much for coming on. I've like never seen so much excitement in the community around one brand launching. So we're all so excited to see how far you go. Aditi, thank you so much for joining us as always and giving us the inside scoop on how to get in good VCs.
Thank you guys so much. And a Monday night of all things.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, we will look forward to seeing everybody on the next one. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you for the comments. And we'll see you all soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Everybody.
Bye.
All right. Let me close